this. And therefore, we see people that they play with love, they cannot get married, they cannot commit themselves, and it's a whole series of lectures which I have to understand how to build love and why when you don't build it properly the way it is, so serious psychological damage is coming up. Now, the third longing is a spiritual one. How comes? Because we say that the same way there is a physical womb, there is a spiritual womb. Namely, the infant, while he's growing in the womb, at the same time his soul is growing. Now we don't understand it exactly how does it happen, but according to the Kabbalah, the soul is exposed to unbelievable experience. And eventually when the baby goes out, all of a sudden he forgets it. And when he forgets it, he doesn't forget it totally. There is an impression that is left there. And all his life is longing for this fantastic experience. That's what Kohelet says, King Solomon says, "Ve'anefesh lo timale." And the soul will never be fulfilled. Why? Because it's longing to this unbelievable experience which I used to have and I don't have. So these are the three longings. So if this is my I, and this is a physical, this is an emotional, and this is a spiritual. So it is a physical, emotional, and spiritual. Now, in psychology, even if they would recognize the spiritual one, as I said, things can be expressed separately. Now, we should know there are terrible and unbelievable contradictions between the different components. In order to understand the contradiction, I have to explain one more concept, which is in Hebrew it's called osher. Osher in English, you translate it bliss, but it's not so much so. Osher comes from the word ishur, validation. So, actually the utmost bliss comes that I feel totally, fully validated. Now, I can be validated here, or here, or here. And I have to explain the different components. Here, let's assume I want to be validated as a man, or my wife as a woman. So we should understand that our physical drive, we have many physical drives, but the utmost of it is not just for the physical drive, is for the bliss, is for the osher, is for the issue, because what I want is to be validated as a man. Now, I can be validated as a person, but it can come from external sources or from internal sources. When it comes from external sources, we call it emotional. When it comes from internal sources, we call it spiritual. Now, from external sources, I'll call it success, let's say from the society, or for my wife is love, or belonging. So I just showed three sources of external validation. And this is a source of my emotional pleasure. I feel I'm worthy from external sources. But I can feel worthy from internal sources, but this would come from my values. Okay, now I expressed different sources of osher, of bliss, of validation. But unfortunately, there are tremendous and unbelievable contradictions between the different components. Let's assume, a guy, he tells her, I love you. And he gives her external validation. But she has to behave in a way that contradicts her values. Right? So he said, give up your inner validation, and I'll compensate that with external validation. You understand? And therefore, she might do it, but she'll be torn apart. Because this is not the harmony we look. We look only when things work together. Maybe I'll take I'll try to make a mockery, so I'll take to some extreme this famous concept of psychologists that I need to express my needs, okay? So let's say a woman needs to be validated as a person, but it has to be validated also as a woman, okay? So I'll try to distort it. Let's say two men are talking to her. One would tell her, look, you are so charming, but could you be quiet? The other one says, you're so smart, but could you stay afar? One would give her validation as a woman, and one would give her as a validation as a person. She doesn't feel well about it, right? Because we need it as a unified form, right? Things has to be unified. This is just an example to show that we need the things to be unified. So the key to Jewish psychology is that our needs have not just to be expressed, but to be unified. Examples. A good meal is a physical pleasure. If I have it with people I love and belong, this is also emotional. If it's also spiritual, it can be Shabbos night or Leila Seder, right? Seder night, right? Therefore, it's embedded in our personality. It's something very, very meaningful. Why? Because it's unifying the three components. A lust to women is physical. If I love her as well, this is love. And if I have a covenant with her as well, this is spiritual. You see? Now, once you understand this concept, one can take this now and channel it to many, many possible directions. So I have a series of lectures on love, okay? Because love, it's a very, very complicated concept, and I try to elaborate it. But this evening, I'd like to be superficial, but to jump on many, many areas, okay? And try to show what does it mean to unify this in many, many areas. So, on one hand, this lecture is broader because it covers many, many areas, but the other end is much more superficial because I just would touch it, okay? Clear? Now, so I'd like to know now, how can I unify this concept regarding work, job? Namely, I'm a consultant for people to find jobs, and he has a job, but he wants to progress. What does it mean to grow in job? Mainly only more salary? That's what it means? No, I'll tell him, really, your ultimate goal is to unify the three components. Sometimes we must have do compromise because we must make living, right? So, but if I want, I put a goal where to strive for, I definitely look for a job that would help me to unify the three components. Example. What does it mean physical pleasure from the work? The work should be interesting. A boring job is damaging us. You should understand. Our mind need to be excited. We have to be stimulated. So therefore, if it's boring, it's not good. Sometimes I must do it, but it's not good. Okay? So this is regarding physical. Now what does it mean emotional? This would be regarding belonging and success. Namely, I'd like to be in an atmosphere where people give me a feeling of belonging and they appreciate what I do. Right? This means that this is a good job in terms of emotional. But I can do it in a casino as well. Right? Then there is no spiritual realm. Namely, the third component is it should be a job where it's meaningful for me in terms of my values. So that's a good job, all right? A good job that it unifies the three components. I'd like to elaborate it a bit more. Let's say I have different realms of my life. I'm a son, I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm a friend to my, right? I'm a Jew, I'm a citizen, I have a hobby, etc. Okay? And, I forgot something very important. I have a career. And all this encompassing me. Now, I'd like to depict something very theoretical, which I would call it your potential. And I claim that one can grow artificially beyond his potential. And this is a very damaging example. I don't know if you heard in management, it's called the Piteric principle. The Piteric principle goes like that. Just imagine there is a hierarchy in national banks or in the army or whatever it is. Thousands of people go along and climb along the ladder. Now they found something very, very startling. They don't understand why at the beginning. That eventually the jobs, the higher jobs get occupied by people who are not so successful in their jobs. And eventually they found why. Because if you are very successful, what happens to you? They promote you. If you are very successful, what happens? They promote you. When they stop promoting you, when you are not that successful, when you still do the job, but like a car going uphill, then they stop promoting you. So when do you get stuck? When you are not that good. You understand? So eventually the jobs get filled up and people get stuck when they are not that good. Do you understand the problem? I call such a guy that definitely he grew beyond his potential. Now people don't understand. They think that it's a contradiction in language. How can I grow beyond my potential? The fact that I grew means that this is my potential. No! You can always grow more and more in a distorted way. Now, let's try to show that in a picture. Let's say that this is your potential now, and this is your I. Now, I degenerated many of the areas of your life, but one area got much, much bigger. This is your career. You see what happens now? So you really grew more beyond your potential. And now I defined what is your potential. Potential is not the extent that you can grow. Potential is only the extent that you can grow and still be a unified person. And that's such a crucial definition. And this is a Jewish definition, not a psychological definition. You understand that? And then we come to people who are so successful but distorted. We call it caricature. Just imagine, this guy had a fantastic nose. Right? Can be such a beautiful nose, just but out of proportion. As I said about a certain woman, she has such beautiful eyes, especially the left big one, No. This is not. Things have to be proportional. And if you are very successful in your job and distorted in your personality, you are a caricature. Now, unfortunately, our society, because they don't understand the concept of unification, they create caricatures. And therefore, American society is full of caricatures. And therefore, you see now how crucial when Judaism says it's not enough to express your needs. It has to be in a unified form. No. It has to be unified. No, it has to be unified. For example, let's say someone comes and asks me, can I take a higher job, a more responsible position? Okay? So I say, let's see how is your relationship with your parents. How your relationship with your wife. How is your Shabbos? How is your hobby? If the things are neglected, you're very soon going to be a caricature. Right? I'm not saying the same in size, but it should be in harmony.
But I think it's very few people who can unify that.
I understand. That's why I still go around and lecture. My job is not over yet.
I'm still young enough to listen.
Yes.
What action do people take to become balanced?
I don't understand.
What action should people take to become balanced?
Yeah, but I want now, both two people used already the word balance, so I want to make clear Judaism is not talking about balancing. It's talking about unification. I'll explain between the balancing, the difference.
What actions do we actually take to reach that goal?
Understand? I just use